Hi everyone, welcome back. Well, we're back on our Marshall soon to be multi-spreader project. We've spent a bit of time this morning scratching our heads and working out what we're going to do. We've taken the spinners off because they're not going to sit in the right spot anymore. We've sat the shaft, the new shaft, in the underneath here to try and work out what heights everything need to be. So we've got it pretty much where we want it to sit. We're going to make up a couple of angle brackets that we're going to weld onto this face of the chassis here, that just sit up another 50 millimeters to support the bearings. We're going to shift the bearings in on either side of the shaft so that they're a bit closer to the chassis here, and then that is sitting in the right spot. Once we've got the shaft fixed in place and we're happy with the way it's sitting and that it turns and everything, then we can drop the bin down to exactly the right spot and we can bolt that into position. At the moment it's sitting a little bit high, so it's got to come down probably another 40 mils or so, so that the piece of plywood that we are going to sit in here to make the floor of the bin is at the right height for these slats to just run across the top of it. So I'm going to move this down to the welder and weld in these two brackets that we've made up now, and then we can have a look at lowering the bin down. So it feels like very slow progress on this at the moment, but we've got our brackets welded in and we've got our shaft just sitting in place with a couple of bolts loosely in to hold it. Now that we've done that, we can see where we need to cut out here to go around the shaft, and then we'll be able to fit the plywood base into here. And from there we'll be able to actually see what height we need the rest of the bin. So I'm going to start marking and cutting this out now, and we'll see where we get to. Okay, so we've got our shaft mounted up. I've cut the plywood to go in the floor here, and I've got this little short piece of chain just to make sure it's all going to run properly, and we've chocked this up to the right height. It's even all around now, and I'm pretty happy with the way that's going to run. I think that'll work fine at that height. So we can now go through and fix all of these mounts into the right position. The next thing we need to do is to make the idler shaft that goes at the front end of the spreader to run the chain on. So we're going to get on with that next. To make up these idler hubs for this chain to run in, we're going to use an old trailer wheel hub. We've got to shorten the trailer axle so that the centre of the hub centres on the chain on the spreader. And then we're using this piece of 10mm plate. We're going to cut out four circles, 180 millimeters in diameter. We're going to cut a hole in the middle of them all, and we're going to bolt one of them on either side of each of these two hubs to give us a larger diameter with a gap in the middle, and the chain will run in there. That's pretty much what the original looks like on the other spreader that I had a look at, and I think this will work quite well. This is almost the same width as the chain links are. I'll probably just need to space it out another mil or so with a couple of washers in here. I've marked the outside yellow line is the outside diameter. This black line here was a mistake. The inside circle is the circle we're going to cut to go around here, so it sits hard down on this face. The other ones on the back here, it's a larger diameter, so two of them have to have a larger circle in the middle. and this line here is the center for the studs. So once I've cut these out, I'll clamp them all onto the hub and be able to drill on this line. Now whenever you're oxy cutting something, I'm going to oxy cut out the center here. Whenever you're oxy cutting, the first thing that happens is you burn off your scribe line or any line that you've got, any markings you've got. So I've just been around with a center punch and center punched on the mark I need to cut on. Probably the heat will burn off this line round here too, so I've center punched this one. I will center punch the outside one here. These are all going to be the outside of these is going to be cut out with the angle grinder. There's an awful lot of cutting to do here. There's probably a couple of hours of cutting, and I'm just going to have to get it as round as possible. Jobs like this are so much easier when you've got good access to a lathe, but my lathe is not currently set up, so we're going to just do this project with what we have available to us and do the best we can with it. Okay, so we've cut out our plate for our hub to fit in. We've drilled the holes for the studs to go through. The next job is to cut out each individual plate. And yeah, there's going to be a few hours work in that, so I'm going to get on with that now. Okay, so we've cut out our 4 circles, and they're not too bad, but now we just need to go over them with a grinder and just make them actually round. So that's probably another hour's worth of work, so I'm going to get on and do that now. This is the trailer axle that we're going to use to mount to make the idler shaft. So we've cut out our 2 circles here. They sit on either side of the hub like this. Now the trailer axle at the moment is a little bit too long, so we need to shorten it down a little bit. So we've bolted our 2 discs onto the axle hub loosely and put it back onto the axle. We've trimmed the axle down a bit, and we're now going to weld it onto this piece of steel to make it the right length. Here is the complete idler shaft with the chain sitting on it to check for fit. It's turned out pretty well. The gap here is just a little bit narrow, so we're going to have to just space it out with a couple of washers. The next thing we need to do, this shaft here on the back has a lot of wear on it. So you can see in here, this bit in here should be the same level as this. And the shaft was actually removed because of this wear in it on the old machine. So we're going to I think this is cast steel, not cast iron, so we should be able to weld it. And we're just going to build this up with a bit of weld and then grind it off again. This wear was causing quite a lot of issues with the chain because of the length of the link on the chain moving too far. It was starting to climb up on these and damage them even further and also stretch the chain. So yeah, we're just going to weld these up now and see if we can improve that a bit. Okay, so we've spent a bit of time now with the welder and grinder, and we've gone from worn like this to welded like this, and then spent a bit of time with the grinder, got it pretty much looking the way it used to when it was new. There's a few little imperfections in it. This is a very slow revving shaft, and those little bits aren't going to make any difference. So next I'm going to take the shaft off and turn it round so that I can get it this side a little bit more easily to weld up. But I'm pretty pleased with the way that's coming up. Okay, so we've finished welding up this drive gear here and grinding it back. I'm reasonably happy with the way it turned out, and the chest piece of chain we've got here now fits so much better than it used to. These links would move around so much and start climbing over this, so it was well worth taking the time to weld these up and repair this drive gear. So now that we've got this sitting in, we're almost ready to try and pull the full length piece of chain through and start building the rollers up the front end of the to hold the front end of this piece of chain. Okay, so we've got the apron chain in now with the rollers. I haven't put this in permanently. I've got a link here that I've got to weld up, but I just want to get everything else set up before I get this permanently in place. I'm pretty pleased with the way it turned out. We've got our front shaft in here. This side here needs a little bit of adjustment. It's just not quite sitting in there properly at the moment. I think there's something that's not quite square here, but we'll fiddle with that as we get a little bit closer to getting it all working. So the next step with this is to set up the carrier for the spinners. This side is the top, and this side is the side that goes onto the back of the spreader. So I'm going to work on getting that up into place and working out exactly where it all needs to sit next. All right, so we've got the spinners mounted back up again. We've got a bit of work to do in here still. I've got to put something over here and some chutes that divert it down onto the spinners here. And I've still got to put the shaft on the side to drive, for the belts to run on to drive the two spinners. I'm not overly happy with the way these two spinners have fitted, but they're going to work like this, I think. So we'll give this a go for this year, and probably next year we'll take it apart again and just modify the back end a little bit. So we've still got a little bit of work to do to this. I've still got to work out how to drive this. The old chain shaft turned that way. This one has to turn this way because we're using the top of the chain instead of the bottom of the chain. So I've got to make up some sort of gearbox, and I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do that yet. I've got a couple of gears out of a windmill that I'm looking at mounting here to make it go in the opposite direction. We've got to put the shaft on this side still, and we've got to fill in the other end so that the fertiliser doesn't fall out there, and we've got to make up a bit of a door for this end that we can adjust to change our rates, but we're getting pretty close with this. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this little update on our Marshall spreader. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye.